Hello, Midland Christian family, and welcome to the MCS podcast telling the story of Midland Christian School, past, present, and future. All right, welcome into the studio, and Dr. Anderson, welcome back for your monthly touch point here.
Thanks, Trent.
And we're excited to jump into what's going on here on campus and what's coming up in the future. And man, what a whirlwind of a start to the school year.
Yes,
a lot
indeed.
packed into that first quarter, which we are here at the end of the first 9 weeks, which is new to the campus, but ending the first grading period and this first quarter of our year. And just so many things, good things going on campus. So to kind of talk about just the start to the year, where do you feel like we sit and some of the things that have gone on here in the first few months?
Thanks for asking. I think we're off to a great start. We have had a lot of activity. We've hosted lots of volleyball and football and some really exciting games that we've been a part of. Our cross-country program is doing amazing. We've got state tennis coming up this next weekend. And I don't know how many other activities that I'm leaving out, but it's just been a whirlwind on that front. We had an incredible Grandparents' Day. We had over 700 grandparents on campus last week, and just so much joy. And of course, our Midland Christian students love their grandparents big time, and so we were really blessed to see that. Today, Mustang Run's going on, and so that's been around for a long time. And by the way, let me give a shout out to Miss Courtney McHugh,
Absolutely.
who orchestrated Grandparents' Day and Mustang Run. So she gets the gold star this week for doing such an amazing job. We've had a wonderful opportunity and open window to focus on increasing academic rigor, and so those conversations have just been wonderful and are making some moves, I think, that are going to be really meaningful to our students and our parents as we head into the next 9 weeks. So pretty exciting time, lots and lots happening. And our students, I just want to brag on them a little bit. Wow, what a great start it's been. I mean, just the attitude that they brought to school this year, the dedication that they are giving. Of course, we're always going to have those students who test the boundaries a little bit,
Sure.
you know, but overall, it has just been such a refreshing experience. And I credit that to our students really buying into this Us and Mustangs theme for the year. And moms and dads, too, of course, really helping our students understand what good, healthy boundaries look like and what being a team player looks like and what being a student at Midland Christian School looks like. So thanks, students. Thanks, moms and dads. And thanks to our faculty and staff who have also brought a lot of enthusiasm to the school year and are doing an incredible job.
Yeah, I'd second the shout out to the student leadership on campus. Obviously StuCo, but there's a huge core group of students who have really taken initiative this year, developing some plans for not just events, but just kind of the way they want to move throughout the school year,
Right.
And the attitude and the way that they've approached being the Us and Mustangs. And you go to the volleyball game last night, and obviously the student section, but you see different generations of students interacting together. We had a couple interviews with some football players who talked about the seniors versus the freshmen. Sometimes that can be a strange dynamic on a team.
Right.
They said, no, we're so close, the seniors and freshmen, and we really do enjoy being around each other. And I think that just permeates throughout the whole campus when your leadership is doing those things. So great start to the school year. Obviously Grandparents' Day and Mustang Run, some of those key events throughout the year that bring everybody onto campus, and we get to enjoy each other's fellowship. So I want to ask you while you're here. Last episode we had you on. We kind of introduced our ideal graduate profile, and I'd love to spend some time over the next four episodes that we meet going through that ideal graduate profile and starting with Christlike this week. So if you don't mind, maybe reframing our ideal graduate profile and then just kind of leaning into that first pillar of Christlikeness, and really kind of how does that manifest in a school year as we move throughout the year.
Yeah. So I want to back up a little bit and set a context for parents who may not be familiar or students who may not be familiar with the origin of the ideal graduate profile, and then talk a little bit about Christlikeness. And so when you go back to April of 2023, we pulled our entire faculty and staff together and went through an exercise of priority sorting what we felt like after fantastic season of prayer, the priority sorting the future we felt God was calling us to live into. So out of that conversation came multiple follow-up conversations. And what began to surface were these themes that our faculty and our staff felt like that truly God, through the power of his Spirit, was revealing to us, this is the future that I'm calling you into. And so our Live for God, Love Like Jesus, Learn for Life purpose surfaced out of those conversations. But in addition to that, we challenged our faculty and staff to spend time focusing on what we call the ideal Midland Christian graduate. So in other words, years from now, when students walk across the graduation stage, what do we want them to embody above all else? And of course, we never intended to create an exhaustive list. That's impossible to do. But those key characteristics, those key components, key values that we want our students to have in their heads and in their hearts. And so that then is where the CARE acronym took root and gave us this idea of Christlikeness and academic preparedness, being relationship driven with God, with his word, with others, and then also being emotionally intelligent, which we feel like is absolutely critical this day and time, that we are self-aware, but we are also others aware, among other attributes of being emotionally intelligent. And so when we focused on each of those CARE components, we began creating some additional vocabulary that helps our students and helps our parents, and really anyone who wants to investigate what Midland Christian School is all about, understand, hey, this is what we mean by that. And so I brought with me a copy of the Ideal Graduate Profile, and this is easily accessible. We have digital links. There are hard copies in the office if anybody would like to swing by and pick one up. But when we talk about Christlikeness, there are four primary components that help us understand what that means. First and foremost, we want to be an organization that is faith-focused. And I've said this before, but I think it bears repeating. We are Midland Christian School. And the Christian, the followers of Jesus, disciples of Jesus aspect of who we are is in the middle on purpose. And we are unapologetically a Christian school. And we have been, we are, and we always will be faith-focused. And so when we talk about living for God and loving like Jesus and learning for life, those aren't just words, that are in a packet or words that are on a wall. We want our students to own those words deeply in their hearts. And we challenge our students to pursue their faith development and growth in all aspects of their life. So whether they're in the classroom or on the field, or whether they're just hanging out as friends, it doesn't really matter. Truly, it's all about Jesus. And so one of the things that makes us unique from other academic organizations is that we infuse study of God's Word. We participate in chapel on a daily basis. You will see teachers and sometimes even students praying for one another and with one another. There have been times that I've walked down the halls and I've seen teachers praying over students or with students, or even in our athletic contests, when our students huddle up at the beginning, it's a season of prayer, before they go out and showcase the talents that God has given them. And so we really want to be an organization that focuses on study of God's Word, devotion, worship, other spiritual disciplines that help shape and form us into the image of Jesus himself. We want to be a place where our students don't just worship God, but they revere God. We again, are unapologetically about holiness. I think a lot of people would look maybe at our student handbook and they would think, wow, you guys are really strict. Or, wow, you guys are really hard-nosed. I think if you look at our student handbook through the lens of the people that Jesus calls us to be, it's actually, no, we want to be people of righteousness, not in an arrogant way, or not in a we're better than you way, but in a, God loves us so much that he sent Jesus to give his life for us and to save us from ourselves. And so how can I not respond in any other way but to say, I want to honor that. I want to love because he loved. I want to live righteously because he lived righteously. And so I hope that registers and resonates with people who know who we are and what we are about. We are obviously always going to make mistakes. We're always going to be in those seasons of life where we make poor choices. But even then, we understand that through God's grace, there is opportunity to be redeemed and restored and be back on mission with him. A heart of service is part of Christlikeness. Jesus, of course, is, in my opinion, the greatest servant who ever lived. And he modeled again and again and again that whether it is the poorest of the poor or the most powerful of the powerful, he never compromised who he was, never compromised his mission. And, he encouraged us to understand that there is no greater love in this world, that we would lay our lives down for one another. And so in day-to-day living, what that means is I don't always get my way. There are actually times when my faith can be even more deeply formed if you get your way. But it also means that, that daily taking up of my cross, that with every day that passes, I die a little bit more to self so that I can live more and more for him. And, I don't know that we expect our students to master that by the time they're 8. I mean, it's a lifetime pursuit. And so even when our students do maybe drift into poor choices, the conversations that we have been part of on the disciplinary side has been to try to gently pull back. We don't rule with the iron fist here. We don't rule with the corporal punishment approach. It's much more about, hey, let's have a conversation about that, because our motivation above all else, and all that we do and all that we say and all that we're about, comes from our faith and our belief that Jesus is who he says he is, and he did what he said he did, and he's about what he says that he is about. And so I'm excited to see opportunity after opportunity to put our students and our parents and our faculty and staff into those conversational spaces, lead them to an opportunity to choose to follow him, but never in a way that is coercive or kind of iron-fisted. The outcome of that, I think, is just a deep desire to be ethical people in every sense of the word. And so, I can't make a lot of guarantees in life, but I can assure our parents, I'll never lie to you. I'll always tell you the truth. And I think as we grow as disciples of Jesus in the context of Midland Christian School, my hope would be that parents would return that same courtesy, that we would just always deal in truth, that we would bring things into life, that our students, even if they make mistakes, would just be honest and say, yeah, that's something I'm struggling with, or yeah, that was a really poor decision that I made. Because those are conversational spaces where it's like, okay, we know what the truth is. We've got it on the table. Now we can do something about it. We live in a time when shortcuts seem to be okay, when fudging our information and our taxes seems to be kind of the norm, when showing up late and maybe, robbing employers of time, or leaving early and doing the same thing, or fudging the truth a little bit here or there. We kind of seem to be, as a nation, a lot more comfortable with that than we used to be. And I mourn that on behalf of our nation, because I think we're missing an incredible opportunity to just bring things to light and deal in truth. And as we do that, we honor God. But man, we also make it so much easier, because if I'm a person who is a person of duplicity, over time, I forget the lies that I've told different people. But if I'm always walking in truth, then I'm walking in freedom.
Absolutely.
Because who you see is who you get, and what you see is what you get. And so those are some of the primary components, just that faith focus, that we want to position our entire MCS family to be a people who reveres God, have that heart of service, and that I think leads to highly ethical living. And so, yeah, those are some of the components of Christ-likeness.
Yeah, and it's so appreciated as an employee to have, just this framework of, okay, I can check myself, what goes on in my classroom, how I approach my curriculum,
Right.
As a coach, how am I leading my team? Does this line up with what we've decided is important for our community? As a parent, I think it's so helpful. I was in conversation with another parent just last week, and he said, I want to take that graphic and I want to put it on top of my door.
Right.
So like when we walk out, our family wants to be about these, these pillars, about these things. And so with that, how do you take that into specific context? How does it play out? Maybe in an interaction with a student, maybe how would it play out? When you have confrontation, because like you said, we all fall short.
Right.
And so how do we have those conversations in the context of our ideal graduate profile?
Thank you. It's a fantastic question. There's a couple of different things that I would respond to that, have been immediately actionable for us as an organization. So we actually took the ideal graduate profile and we are utilizing that same language even in staff development this year. And so we have developed, and I think I'm right in saying this, I think it's one of the first times in the school's history that something like this has happened. Some folks in the business world would use the term performance evaluation, which I've been part of that in other contexts in which I've led and which I've worked. But that's not really a phrase that resonates with what we're trying to get to. And so we're really talking about development. And so Christ-likeness and academic excellence, being relationship-driven, being emotionally intelligent, we're using those same characteristics to help our faculty and staff grow as well. So that's one conversational space that I'm super pumped about for this school year. And I think it's going to pay huge dividends for our organization as our faculty and staff just continues to get healthier and healthier and healthier. On the student side, I think it gives us the ability to have a shared vocabulary so that, guys, this is what we're about too. We're not telling you all go do this and then we're going to judge you based on how well you do that. It's like, listen, we're on a journey together. And so I constantly remind myself through questions, okay, is this a Christ-like response as I'm crafting this email? What am I doing as the president of the school to make sure that we are growing in our academic excellence? Am I personally keeping relationships, intact and trying to grow those and build those and make them stronger? And what about my own choices? Am I showcasing that I'm at least trying to live into being emotionally intelligent? So those are some of the aspects, I think, where we see some specifics. I hear and I'm seeing more and more the live, love, learn language. I'm hearing it even in the context of student conversations and classroom conversations when I'm dropping in. And so I think I hope and pray that others see it as well. I would say to moms and dads, this ideal graduate profile, it's a fantastic conversational piece with your kids. I know that we have some families here who, if we were to think about spiritual maturity, we have some families here who just haven't had a lot of exposure to a faith community or church life. And so I get that. Here's my response to that. I'm really, really glad they're here because we've got an opportunity through conversations like this to say, hey, would you like to know a little bit more about this man named Jesus? And would you like to possibly explore a little bit more about what it means to be his follower? And then we have families here who have taken the incredible deep dive, who are not just disciples of Jesus, but they're disciple makers. And even in that context, the language of our ideal graduate profile, I think, is still fantastic for conversational purposes, for spiritual formation purposes. Maybe even if you're dealing with a child who's making some poor choices, just, hey, let's sit down and talk through this as a standard. Let's sit down and pray through this together as a family. And know that in every conversation we have, even the hard conversations, even the ones that are like maybe, we're not sure if you're going to be able to to go to school here anymore. Even in those conversations, understanding that the motivation behind all of this comes first and foremost through the love of Jesus. And so even in those awkward conversations, we're going to do all we can to express the love of Christ to as many people as we can. And, at the end of the day, God gets the glory.
Absolutely. And I had the opportunity last couple of weeks to interview some very young students as part of a Grandparents' Day feature that we did. And sitting in a chair just on the other side of this room and listening, I asked a student that's in pre-K, do you know our mission? And she looked right in the camera and said, live for God, love like Jesus, learn for life. And, I did my best to continue the interview without weeping. But it does, over time, when you make those pillars and your mission present daily, it becomes part of who you are.
Yes.
And so we're so appreciative of that mission and just the reinforcement that has been there over the last year, and we look forward to how that continues to grow. And I'm excited to have a student focus group that has kind of banded together and said, we want to get together and talk about some issues, and we're willing to do that on camera.
Yeah.
And so I'm looking forward to this next week or so, having some students on camera and talking through some of those situations and how it works out. And so, Dr. Anderson, thank you again for just taking the time to sit in with us and check in. And as always, we look forward to continuing the work that God's put in front of us.
Thanks so much for having me on this episode. I appreciate it.